of the grief, he said, it does have an obviously emotional effect. Gilbert Jordan said he and his current wife and Russell's stepmother, Christy, left California following the disappearance of his son. Quote, "I wanted to get out of there," he said, referring to the alleged drug trade and an environment he believed to be dangerous. Gilbert Jordan said Russell's mother died in 1990 from cancer, never knowing what happened to her son. Once the investigation is complete, Russell's remains are scheduled to be released to Gilbert Jordan, and plans are to bury Russell next to his mother in an Arkansas cemetery. Gilbert Jordan said his son knew Vivek in school, but does not believe Vivek's claims that he killed Russell in self-defense after he pulled a knife on him. In fact, both teens were Mormons, and Russell had expressed concerns to Gilbert Jordan that Vivek hadn't been attending church. Quote, "My son Russell was not a violent person," he said. The teen was only 5 foot, 6 inches tall, enjoyed fishing and going on Boy Scout trips, he said. He even had a girlfriend, and the two of them were making plans to attend a Grateful Dead concert with another couple, which would have been a week after he disappeared on May 28, 1982. Russell had a lot of friends in the Scouts and was friends with his basketball teammates, said Gilbert Jordan. Gilbert Jordan said he has mixed feelings about the case now. At this point, I am somewhat relieved, he said. He also said he's not vengeful and feels sorry for the wife and children of the accused murdered Vivek. Jordan said he would like to get closure for the family, but also hopes justice is done.
Okay. Thank you very much. I know that must have been really difficult, and that is the article that was written based on what you told him, right? Now, I want to go to you, Christy, for a minute, because you were there in those days, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go into the injustice of this whole mess here after a while. What I'd like to know from you, what does it feel like? That's not a fair question, but give us some kind of sense of what do you need from the people around you?
Really closure, a feeling that, one, he didn't die in vain and that people know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It has hurt us over all these many years, this feeling of emptiness, a feeling that something needs to be resolved. Mm-hmm. We loved him very dearly, and to have people discount his, as if he had run away, when we in our hearts knew he had not run away. In fact, we had highly suspected this fellow, this Sean Vivek, that he had something to do with his death. But the police and the county sheriffs had dismissed it, only going so far as to think that he was a runaway and not doing anything more.
Mm-hmm. You see, what's so similar between what's going on in the Seattle area and here, because so many years have passed in between, and I don't have to be psychic to think that if certain parts are missing so you can identify a person, that is almost too obvious, I would think. But that's my own input. Now, Dr. Jordan, do you think anything is going to change after you get closure? I mean, for you personally.
Well, once he's been buried with his mother, and maybe the family can all come together and so on, it will be closure, but I don't believe that justice will be completely done, because I know from profilers' analysis and so on that not just Vivek was involved in the murder, as he admitted, and I hate to have him to be the only scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
Violence, I know from what the police told me, that they know that Mr. Vivek was a violent person, and that his case doesn't hold any water for self-defense. And it's interesting that one of the witnesses also helped, it was involved with the burial of Russsel. But the police are cut a deal with this particular person in order to use him as a witness, rather than to prosecute him for being an accomplice to the crime. They want to be able to put away Mr. Vivek, so they cut a deal with the other witness who was party to the crime, and it looks like that an older man was calling the shots because of alleged drug issues that may have been involved. It was not, as some newspapers have said, over photography equipment and so on, which my wife and I know was actually donated to Russsel, and Russsel never stole them from the school. And this was the story that Mr. Vivek was trying to tell the papers on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Here is a picture. I want to just show it if you can.
Oh, okay. Let me see. While we're focusing, and we're going to do this the hard way. We are in a hotel room here from the conference where Dr. Jordan was a speaker, and I guess I was too, huh? Yeah.
Yes, you were.
And I'm going to bring it just a little closer. And so we don't have our normal setup here, so that's one of those shows that we do the very best we can. Yeah, I got it. Thank you very much. Now, what I want to know here, here's the thing. You are a very respected, both of you, very respected member of the community, whether it's in California or, no, it doesn't matter where you are, okay? And so supposing something like that happens to a person that doesn't have the status that you do, what do you say to a parent?
It's awfully hard to know what to say, because frankly, a person has such an empty feeling, such an that a person is gone or dead, and that they had no right to be, that there was no need to be, that it was wrongful. And then the hope that even though it won't bring the individual back, that at least the ones who perpetrated it, whether it's one or more, that somehow justice is done so that it can be laid to rest.
So when the when the authorities belittle your concerns about your children, what does a parent do? Pursue it? What do you do? We are so yeah. But now in the mean, this is 20 years ago. Now we have we have all these new laws and everything. So parents are a lot more handicapped with who they can call what. 20 years later. So that's why I appreciate so much you doing that, because it'll probably happen again. It's probably not even the first time.
If somebody is involved with drugs and so on, they may be prone to go ahead and do violence. Now we know that this Mr. Vivek, which was shown
so we're going to go back to what you were saying.
From San Jose Valley, from the Mercury News, there it shows the Santa Clara County Sheriff's escorting this Vivek in his arraignment into court. The defense tried to put him into juvenile court, but thank
like the Kennedy case.
But because of the severity of the case being murder and so on, it's been taken out of juvenile court, and it's definitely he's going to be tried as an adult. But the question is he going to be tried as an adult according to today's laws, or the laws of California as they were in 1982 for an adult?
Yeah, which fits right in what we were saying here. In the meantime, so many things have happened and all the laws have changed, you see?
Yes.
And so that's really a catch-22 here.
For example, if he was caught today, he would have anywhere from 18 years to life.
Life.
While at that time it could be anywhere from 8 to 18 years and maybe to life. And so there is definitely a little difference between you know, what sentence he could be sentenced for such a brutal crime. Apparently they did find later on, after 1995, they did find part of the skull, and it was very much crushed and not done like by a knife blade or so on, and that it was done like a heavy boulder or something that crushed the skull.
Now you are a physicist?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now here, this is what my question is, and keep in mind we're just talking this out here, you know. If they recovered the remains of your son, or most of them 15 years ago, now we have pieces of UFOs that we take a little chip off, I mean the size of a needle pin, and we can use that as evidence for something else or something that we're looking for. Now, why do they have to keep everything? Why can't they just go and let you bury your son? That's my whole thing. That's what I don't understand.
I agree with you.
Like I said, you know, we just came from a conference where we talked about things like that. So they don't have to keep a whole body.
I think there's maybe some cover-up on the part of the government again. This is one of the topics I talked about in the conference.
In the conference, yeah.
And I don't know. There's obviously psychological pressure that is being put on us. And like I said in the article, this type of thing can drive anybody nuts with grief and not knowing all the facts and things of this nature. And basically a person grieves, and the other siblings, for instance, I just talked recently to two of his sisters, and they would like to see complete justice done, that all those that are involved with the perpetration of this crime would be somehow persecuted, not just deals cut in order to have witnesses and to win cases. And basically they also wonder why, since they already have DNA evidence, if the other side wants, then like you said, why not just have a portion, one bone or something for the run the tests for these mitochondrial tests, which is the most expensive DNA test. But they could go ahead and return it, and both the sisters are mad. Also, it's interesting that the one sister, she's been involved with the prosecutor and expected the prosecutor's office always promised that they would keep contact with her, and they do not contact her. She has to contact them, and so on. And I was told by the Los Gatos Police Department that they would keep me up to date on things, and the only way I keep up to date is when my stepson Carl, who lives in the area, Carl Isaacson, he goes ahead and lets us know when something hits the paper, and after it hits the paper, then I'll call the Los Gatos Police Department, and then they will let me know about information. But as far as cooperation, there seems to be a lack of cooperation in this case, and it seems that took a long time for the police and the FBI, you know, to come up with a DNA test that was conclusive. And it's like they didn't want to do their job. And I have a letter from the people back in Washington, and it's interesting how they felt about this type of thing.
While you're looking for that, let me go to you here for a minute. Now, it would be easy to assume that the upcoming year election and all of that, that they're going to concentrate on high-profile cases. which even though it doesn't seem that's going to happen in this case, but it very well could be. Do you think that's what they're holding out for?
I don't know. I think it's just because there's a tendency to drag their feet in a case like this, particularly because it does actually seem like there are those that are, as we say, in cahoots or in connection with the agencies, maybe police, maybe sheriff's departments, maybe other, that are helping protect this Sean Vivig, the one who did the murder. His father has had a lot of influence in Santa Clara Valley, and he has been involved with cocaine in Silicon Valley, among, you know, in drug dealing with the people
Allegedly.
in big business.
Yeah, allegedly.
And could be also, yes.
Yes.
So my thinking is that it is highly possible that they are trying to, in quotes, protect themselves and protect the Vivigs, both the father and the son.
And the son.
Something very interesting, and it has caused me a rather to wonder. They did not contact Sean Vivig's mother. Now, Sean Vivig's mother is off in Mongolia. She is on a church mission, and they have not contacted her. Well, now, this is her son, Sean, who has been... Now, she would be able to say something about the character of her son or of her ex-husband. This was not done. And when it came to speaking and asking questions, they asked my husband, Gil, and yes, it is his son. It is true, I'm his stepmother. But they never asked me one question. They didn't care to know one thing from me about Russsel or about Sean or about any of his friends or about school or anything interesting. They contacted my ex-husband and asked him, and it got in the newspaper.
Oh, how weird.
And they asked my son from him, Carl Isaacson, about it, and he did his input. But it's like they don't want the women, the mothers, who I think could give a good account. They don't give any attention to that. That disturbs me.
Well, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I do. I've kind of got to know you on a personal here, so that's why. Stepmother doesn't matter, you know. You are such a nurturing person. Of course, you would have known. And to be a parent, you don't have to be a natural parent. So the first person you should have talked to was you.
You know what's interesting? Before the bones were discovered and so on, the police even suspected me and Christy, especially Christy, that we had murdered Russsel.
Oh, you're kidding.
That even got worse when I realized that Gil's youngest daughter, who I had with us in our home for a year, and I loved her, and she thought that I had something to do with his murder.
Oh, my goodness.
That absolutely, it just leaves me speechless. It's like, what? Because I loved Russsel very dearly, just like a mother. I was his mother.
Yeah.
His mother didn't want him anymore. The one that died of, with a brain tumor. Maybe that was part of the problem. But the thing is I really cared about him.
Well, and we at a point now, I'm going to get your letter here in a minute, but we at a point now, you shouldn't have to defend yourself. We're looking for answers here. And some kind of way, everything's getting pushed under the rug. And Jamal's actually, he always says, if it's not act of God, it's a conspiracy, and I think that applies here. Dr. Jordan, you wanted to say something else here?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Jerry Nance of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was the one that actually, besides myself, really pushed the Los Gatos Police Department to give the bones to the FBI for analysis, and he's the one that had found an independent laboratory that could have run in California the DNA test if the FBI was going to stall any longer. So when he came up with the information that he had found an independent laboratory willing to donate the test, then of course FBI and the Los Gatos police go ahead and do their thing. So I thought I'd mention that. And so on. Then...
Okay, we have to hold it here just a minute. Time to change the tape. it's just mind-boggling how this was all boggled, is it word? Boggled up?
Mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling how they boggled it up.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Jordan.
One thing I might mention is that if other families have their children disappear, don't go along with this 72-hour bet or anything that's waiting for the children. Sure, they're baby runaways, but I think if you feel that something is happening, immediately go to www.missingkids.com and report it as well as to the police, because I found out that the police won't do anything unless pressure is put on them from either the press or from, like in this case, through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
They didn't have Amber Alerts back in those days. In Washington State, we do have an Amber Alert, but even if they had had an Amber Alert, that would not apply. That would not have applied to your son Russell,
No.
because they wasn't even listening to what you said, where he went. Okay.
They do spend a lot of attention. So they said, I was saddened to hear Gil's message that the remains found in Los Gatos were those of Russell. In my position here working with the unknowns and the long-term missing, for each unknown I pray we will find out who he or she is, and for the long-term missing person, I pray they will not be one of the unknowns. Unfortunately, there are times like this when no matter how you look at the case, there is loss. I'm grateful that your search is over, but so terribly sorry for the family's loss. Length of time means nothing when answers are finally known. The pain is no less than if he had been missing only one day.
That's true.
I did not know Russell, but over the past 2 years, and this was written March 4th, 2003, I have been his case manager. I've come to feel like I knew him. My prayer is that he be at peace, and that peace will be in each of your hearts. Take care, and although his case will be closed here at the center, if there's anything I can do, please do not hesitate to contact me. Well, this was written before the article was written in the Los Gatos newspaper, where they had asked specifically, and I'll just quote a section of here, Los Gatos Daily News, which came out on March 27, 2003. They made a comment, and this is what brought it forth, finding Mr. Vivek. Anyone with information about Russsel Jordan or the remains found on April 20th, 1995 may call the police at 408-354-8600.
That brought on some response, thank goodness.
Yeah, it did.
Jordan's mother has since died and was not able to learn the news. His father, Gilbert Jordan, lives in Missouri and could not be reached for comment. The bones were found on the popular trail just south of Main Street entrance, which was under Lexington Dam. Jordan's remains will be shipped to his father in Missouri, but they still haven't shipped them.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that an article that was also when Sununu, the prosecutor, talked to the papers in San Francisco and also the San Jose Mercury News, she admitted that there was a big secret that had been kept all these years, and people, because of the drug issues and so on, knew that there had been a murder in his disappearance, but they kept their mouth shut. But when it hit the newspaper in Los Gatos that his bones were definitely Russell's, then some had the courage, which we appreciate, and there were at least 4 individuals that contacted the prosecutor's office, not the police. And there were two that contacted the Los Gatos police. So it was a well-known fact that some people had knowledge of it, either from bragging of the two individuals involved in burying Russsel, that they had bragged that they had taken care of Russsel. Now, one thing I want to make a comment before his disappearance. It so happened that about 6 weeks before that, Russsel came to our ranch up in Santa Cruz Mountains, and he had been brought back by a senior who was at Los Gatos High School, and he had at that time gone to a party with this senior encouraged at the Vivigs. And at the Vivigs, these two didn't know what was going to happen, and there was nudity, and there was in the hot tub, and Sean Vivig had friends there, and Russsel was there as well as the senior. And at that time there were drugs, shrooms, and marijuana that was given to everybody. And the next day, because we were so mad when we were told by Russsel and his senior what had taken place, we went down to Mr. Vivig and his girlfriend or wife, and we asked them why they would allow this to take place unsupervised in their home, and Mr. Vivig threatened me.
Okay. And you was with him?
Yes, I was with my husband, and he came to the door, and it would seem, as you had said, the girlfriend or wife, we're not sure what it was, she, you know, was starting to speak, and he didn't want her talking, and he got her out of the way. And when Gil, my husband, was speaking to him about it being inappropriate, he was very rude, and he, as my husband said, you know, he did threaten him, and he even, what did he say, that if you were to bring it to the police, what did he say?
The same thing would happen to me that happened to the person who lived on our property that was murdered.
Way back then?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I heard you say. Now, the newspaper article on a 1 to 10, were they fairly accurate, would you say, in as far as your interviews go?
The two papers that I just read
For the
from,
most part.
for the most part, yes.
Oh, okay.
In fact, they did more good than a lot of people.
Okay. Well, then, having said that, we can go into the personal aspect of the whole thing. So let's recap this. Your son is missing, nobody pays attention, you go see about him, you have a general idea what something is not right, and you went there. Instead of getting information, you're being threatened.
Yes.
To the point where there is no mistake whatsoever that if you don't, help me?
We have a little bit of time sequence problem.
Okay.
His being missing was after the party that he had been at, and he had gone back home to us with the senior from high school who brought him back, realizing it was inappropriate what was going on, the nudity, the drugs, and the hot tub. And so it was after that event that we had gone down to see his father, Sean's father, and telling him that it was inappropriate, and that was the time that we were threatened. It was that very year, though, that Russsel was missing.
But
In fact, it was 7 weeks afterwards.
Okay, well now, we had a conversation today about the fact that if I said, you know what I mean, and then, but when I said, do you see what I mean? Okay, when you were threatened and he said that the same thing would happen to you as to the person that was murdered, is there a possibility others?
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So I did see that, right.
Yes.
Okay.
There was another individual who lived up on the Santa Cruz Mountains on the I call it the family property, and he disappeared. Now, all right, there were connections of people who seemed to be involved with the drug growing that was in the lower portions of the Santa Cruz Mountains. And our son Russsel being a Boy Scout and enjoying walking and exploring, had come across not only the marijuana fields, but had seen even that our water pump had been booby-trapped. That meant that it was a dangerous place because, hey, you could get shot, or in some cases they had dogs, but they would have guns rigged. So the thing is, it was a dangerous place to be. There was another individual living on the property, not involved directly with us, and the fellow disappeared. He got to know about things probably too much. And when we had approached the sheriff about this very individual, he didn't want to deal with it at all. It was like he was part of hiding it. This was before Russsel disappeared.
Well, back to the high-profile cases. Now, if I can see how this is going here, I would think that this is just so big that, whee, that's big. You know, if everybody is involved there.
So it wasn't just a personal self-defense thing between one boy and another, as the Sean Vivig portrayed it, as if he was doing something in self-defense. No, it was much bigger than that. And right now, the legal system does not want to bring in the question of the larger picture, which has to do with the importance of their drug growing cartel, which involved a lot of people, not just high school kids, but those that were prompting and influencing them and getting them to be involved in a hush-hush way.
Yeah, but that, if I remember right, 20 years ago, that was a high-profile area.
Yes.
Yeah, even I remember that, and I've never been to California.
And the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office, when my husband, or on other occasions when I went to visit my mother in Santa Cruz, and I went in, they hadn't gotten very far, but at a certain point, things changed. They had cleaned out certain individuals out of that sheriff's department, so they had recognized that they had some problems within the sheriff's department.
Within the sheriff's department?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to go forward a little bit here. So now your son doesn't show up and you start looking for him and nothing ever happens, and then is it because of that you leave, or was there other thing that prompted you to leave?
That was one of the main reasons.
One of the main reasons.
We had a young child. We had a young child. He was about 3-4 years old at the time that Russsel disappeared, and it seemed to be a very dangerous, high-profile area of danger. We didn't think it safe to stay.
He was actually 2 years old, because 1982,
That's correct.
He was 2 years old, and our son was born in 1980.
That's right, and we came to Missouri in 1984, 4 years.
Okay. Oh wow, I can see.
We wanted to protect the other child.
Yeah. Now, supposing Russsel had lived, I think I read that, or I know this, and if you're not comfortable with that, that's okay too. I understand, well, I think it was in here, that he had discovered something, he was going to bring it to the forefront.
Yes.
Now, supposing that had happened, a lot of people's lives would have changed.
Oh,
yes. Absolutely. Because what had happened is he, in his, like Christy mentioned earlier, being a Boy Scout and hiking and knowing all the areas, he found out where at both the Sanborn Park, which was in
Santa Clara County,
and then in Los Gatos County there was Castle Rock State Park. He knew on both those properties he had found marijuana in his hiking.
And on the Santa Cruz County side,
the week that he was supposed to show the people, the ranger from Castle Rock Park, along with a pilot from there at Moffett Field, the federal helicopter with its infrared equipment, had planned to go up with Russsel.
We're not talking about a couple of plants here, right?
Yes, a lot of plants.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. We're not talking, everybody, back then everybody was smoking weed.
Yeah.
And so we're not talking about one or two little
No, we're
plants.
talking about big plants that
Yeah.
7 foot tall and so on.
In various locations.
Various locations.
Both in Santa Clara County side and
Right,
on the
on
Santa
the
Cruz
other
County
side.
And
side.
these parks are large. One has over 6,000 acres and so on. And so we're talking about, Russell knew where the stuff was being grown. After he told me about it, I went to the ranger. I won't say his name because he could
Yeah.
still be a witness. But the ranger of Castle Rock State Park had made arrangements with Moffett Field to take Russsel up with the pilot and himself,
Mm-hmm.
and in a helicopter to go ahead and go look for the locations of all of these plants.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been on the Saturday, you know, the week that he disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And
He disappeared 2 or 3 days
he
before
disappeared
that.
2 days before that.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, that's interesting because it so happened that we had people renting from us who knew Sean Vivig. We didn't know that. And they also knew people who were high, what we call executives in the Santa Clara Valley who were running companies who themselves were users of drugs and so on, and basically were involved in the drug trafficking. And so it's kind of a coincidence that when he's going to reveal where this stuff is being
Yeah.
grown, that then he's murdered.
Yeah,
But the
I
legal
don't think.
circumstance does not want to let any such
Right.
idea come into it that was connected. And
Yeah.
it was. It couldn't help
Yeah.
but be.
Well, and then, but you know, have you ever thought about that? Had they found and tried the men at that time, it wouldn't have the impact that as it does now, simply because it would have just been a regular murder case, and just I believe that every person has a purpose. Now, Russell wasn't able to reveal it then. Maybe he is able to reveal it now. You see what I mean?
In a spirit sense,
Right.
yes.
And I think that's why we're doing the show, because he just won't let us not to, just rest here. Now, for Russell, what would you like for Russell at this moment?
We would like him to have the peace of mind to know that the whole thing was clarified and revealed.
Yeah. And
I would like to add that Russell's life that can be worthwhile
yeah.
if his goal could materialize
To make some
realized.
changes.
and
yeah.
so on. So I'm saying just to have one person put away,
Yeah.
who might have been a puppet in the system,
Mhm.
I'm saying it would be a travesty because Sean Vivig, even though he had a temper and he had a record of doing things,
Mhm.
even though they want to say that he was a hero, as a soldier, that isn't exactly true either, because some things have been found out since then.
Mhm.
And I feel sorry for his wife, and that he has a child by his wife, and of course I feel sorry that they have to go through this. It's interesting that Mr. Vivek made a statement to the press that he said now Mr. Jordan's hell is over and now my hell is beginning.
That was Sean's father, Mr.
Sean,
Vivek.
Mr. Vivek,
Okay.
Clark Vivek.
Now, I've never known to be a vengeful person, so I'm assuming that this is not vengeance on your part.
No.
You just need to have something done.
Yes.
Ah, I'm speechless. Because one thing really leads to another. So I'm going to summarize what we got so far. If your youngsters are out there, and some people still do teach people right from wrong, and sometimes what you teach them is the wrong thing to do. Am I looking at that right?
Yes.
It was, wasn't
In
it?
this case, Russell was trying to do the right
The
thing.
right thing, that's, yeah,
He
that's
was
it.
trying to do two things. One, he was trying to reveal to the park ranger where he had found the marijuana grown in different areas. The other thing, he was trying to do the right thing by his acquaintance, Sean Vivig, by helping him get away from the influence of his father, but into the influence of the church, which would have helped Sean. He might have actually not gotten into trouble like this.
Yeah. Something's going on. I don't know. I lost my thought here. Are there any? Well, what am I? I'm gonna quit asking questions. We're just gonna talk, okay? A little more freely. Now, since they still have not released the remains.
No.
It can't be an issue of money because it's not their money anyway. Any speculation why they're doing that?
They indicate it's because they need to get through this court situation. I don't know why. It's as if the opposition wants to do a test of their own. Well, I thought the tests are already conclusive on the DNA, on the identification.
Is it a possibility they're trying to provoke you?
Probably.
Dr. Jordan?
Well, I would say basically that there probably were elements that would like to provoke me. I think there were elements that would have liked to drive me insane because I knew too much. This has been evident at the conference which I just spoke at. I'm saying there are good people in the government and there are other people that have their own agendas. And there are people in companies, executives like we saw at Enron, that have their own agendas. And as a result of that, because of where I have been and what I have done, some consider me an enemy, and they would love to drive me nuts.
Or discredit what he
Or
says
discredit
by
what I say.
indicating that he's nuts.
Well, I think after all that, everybody should get the picture here. But the thing is here, back to the Green River murderer and how they're handling it up in the Seattle area. It's because the tremendous amount of victims that they have, it really brought to the forefront how important it is for people to get closures. And Channel 4 did a wonderful collage of the people, of the victims. And so I'm thinking maybe the timing of this interview is much wiser and more effective than it would have been when I was here a few months ago, because that hadn't happened yet. Their hearts are open and they can relate a lot more. And so I think your story is just adding to that, because, they said these women up there, they were just prostitutes. But then you have people of your stature over here, and there isn't really a bit of difference. No. Yeah. So, I'm almost out of time. Did I leave out anything?
I think we've covered
If
it.
anybody knows anything else, just let us know and pray so we can finally put Russsel to rest.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Just a minute.